So it's that time of year again, where that great cultural annual event is upon us, the Super Bowl. And I'm just grateful for the 8th year in a row. I'm not sure how it's worked out that I'm not scheduled next Sunday at 5 p.m. for the Mass. Now I realize many of you could take or leave the game. Some of you tune in because others are. Some are eager to see the commercials, I'm not sure you remember, but in 2009, there was begun a global advertising campaign by Coca-Cola. And the advertising campaign was simply titled, Open Happiness. And actually, if you can recall some of these commercials, advertisements, they were quite well done. It was trying to position the brand in the way the simple everyday pleasures. And so it'd often be these little encounters between people where someone steps out just to do a kind gesture, and then you get to see the effect on the other person. Open happiness. Now, I don't want to disparage this at all. And I want to tell you that from my brief time as a missionary in Mexico during the heat of the summer, one of my fondest memories, I actually got to visit some of these houses on horseback. They were out there. And when I would arrive, their hospitality was a chair in the shade with a cold Coca-Cola. So it does bring back really fond memories. But if we ask ourselves, what kind of happiness are we opening here? Is it just sugar, It might help us that 7 years later, Coca-Cola started a new brand initiative, and this one was titled, Taste the Feeling. So maybe that is happiness. Maybe happiness is chasing a feeling. We certainly do that a lot, don't we? I would argue advertisers not only are wise to it, they bank on it. There's a reason so many millions of dollars are spent on these commercials. They know that you and I are wired for some form of happiness, some conception of what makes us happy. Of course, into this, today's gospel speaks. And it's almost like the Lord's saying, I know you better than you know yourself. I know that you can't not seek your happiness in all the choices you make. You can seek it wrongly, but seek it we will. And it's almost like the Lord, because he knows us, reverences this in us. And he wants to speak to our desire to happiness. What we heard today is the beginning of his Sermon on the Mount, his Magna Carta. It's 3 Gospels and 3 chapters in Matthew's Gospel, 5, 6, and 7. And this is how he begins it, speaking about happiness. Now, if you ever have this misconception that if you get closer to Christ, he's just going to strip things from you, life's going to be heavier, more challenging, more miserable, less free. It's just that, a misconception. Like Christ comes to fulfill this desire for happiness, but we can be honest that it's certainly a different kind of happiness than sugar. And I want to give you this morning a simple way. I would argue that no verses in the gospel has more been written about since Christ spoke them. We're kind of fascinated by the Beatitudes. We're confounded by them. We're challenged by them. What did he mean? And I want to offer you just 3 simple interpretive keys that might help you in your own praying with them, trying to assimilate them into your own life. What are the Beatitudes? Well, before they're anything for us, they're the deepest descriptions of what Jesus is like, who he is. It's like if you meditate on the Beatitudes, the first thing that reveals itself is the countenance of Jesus of Nazareth. Like, what was Jesus like? He was merciful. Everyone who was in their gaze felt seen. Like the deepest part, where they hated themselves, he saw deeper than that. He was pure of heart. He could go to Jerusalem when he knew what was coming at him. So that's the first thing. We can't forget it because it's all predicated on that. The second thing is we have to situate the Beatitudes. It's not the first thing Jesus started doing when he began his public ministry. What comes before the Beatitudes? Follow me. Peter and Andrew drop their nets, leave the boat, and follow him. James and John, they leave their dad in the boat and follow him. They've glimpsed enough, they have enough trust to begin forward momentum in trust, in faith. I would argue that none of our faith makes sense until there's forward momentum. Until I am taking intentional, concrete, simple, daily steps in my life to follow Jesus. Otherwise, I just get lost in doctrine and principles, but it doesn't touch my heart. So the Beatitudes reveal the countenance of Jesus. The Beatitudes in some way presume momentum in faith, that I really want to follow him. That's going to entail some risk, some trust. And then the third thing, if we understand that, is the Beatitudes are not like a random hodgepodge collection of qualities or virtues. The saints would have us believe, because they're predicated on Jesus and movement and following him, that there's a sequence. And in the sequence, we can learn a lot. So he didn't start with blessed are the merciful. He started with blessed are the poor in spirit. I would argue that everything follows from that. If you and I have not come to awareness, self-awareness of our deep need, if we are actually full of ourselves, if we are resting, our identity comes from my own achievements, or I've surrounded myself with a bunch of things I can't live without, I tell myself, well, then I would never get up off the couch, figuratively, and follow him. It's when I try to live a virtue and I can't. It's when I experience a little bit of failure in life. It's when I experience loss. It's when I realize I can't really live without water for a few days. Like, I'm a fragile being. I'm a creature. Everything starts there. But then think about what he says next. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. The saints would say these first Beatitudes show us in a certain way, clearly delineating what doesn't make for happiness. And you and I can only learn from experience, the hard way, trial and error, again and again, but hopefully we get wiser. Poor in spirit, possessions don't make me happy. I mean, the Amazon trucks keep whipping through the neighborhood and I'm as guilty as anyone, right? And you know what else doesn't make me happy? Coca-Cola, a burrito, pleasures. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who are free of the illusion that they don't have to chase the next pleasure to be happy. And then the meek, blessed are those who have learned that their happiness is not about having dominance over other people. Boy, how easy it is for you and I to fall into the comparison trap. How am I doing compared to them? We all ask the question, whether we acknowledge it or not, we ask the question in life, how am I doing? But then instead of staying vertical with that question towards God, we go horizontal. And we end up in a lot of rabbit holes. Well, if that's true of the first three Beatitudes, well, the second three, the saints would tell us, describe the positive characteristics of those who are disciples of Jesus, those who are following him. What's the first? They hunger and thirst for righteousness. You've maybe heard me say, but when a doctor is going to check your vitals, like, is this person alive or dead? And they're going to look for a pulse. They're going to check other vitals. What's the vital of your soul, of your heart? What shows whether you're alive or walking dead? It's holy desire. Do you desire God, or is your heart numb? Jesus is saying happiness is for those who are seeking to find the Lord in their everyday. They haven't constructed a life for themselves where they're self-sufficient to themselves. They're seekers. They come to Mass hungry for some spiritual nourishment. And then he says, blessed are the merciful. Boy, this one is timely, isn't it? When it's so easy to put each other in boxes and categories, so easy to make assumptions about people. And what is it to be merciful? It's not to look at another's weakness or to stare at it or to disregard them because of it. Like the merciful give grace. Forgiveness is an active thing. We actually, if you read the Gospels, Jesus is saying, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do when they are driving the nails in his hand and his feet. Like merciful isn't playing defense. Merciful is a way of life for you and I. Merciful is little gestures by which we tell someone they're okay. We don't hold anything against them. I finished this historical novel that really blessed me a few months back called Matterhorn. It was historical fiction on the Vietnam War, and it was a hard read, but it was really good for me. And there was a little addendum at the end with an interview of the author, of course himself, who fought in the Vietnam War. And they said, what's the book essentially about? And he said, I guess it's about a young man coming of age through tremendous adversity and learning not to carry hate forward. Whew. You can lead a lot less trauma than the throes of war for all of us to learn, like, am I carrying nastiness, hate, unforgiveness forward? We're told, blessed are the pure of heart. Who are the pure of heart? It's the people who can look tenaciously, stubbornly at another person and never take their eyes off of their unique goodness. Even if they're in my way and if they're irritating, if they hold different viewpoints than me, I never take my eyes. Because I've learned to be in God's gaze. I've learned to be on how Jesus looks at me. Okay, if you're still with me, I'm going to go to the seventh beatitude. The saints would say 7 is not just random. 7 is the Sabbath. 7 is entering into God's rest. So there's a reason the seventh beatitude is blessed are the peacemakers. It's like if we learn to be free from where happiness is not, and we have these positive qualities, we're becoming more like Jesus, we actually know peace, divine peace. The peace we can't give ourselves, but that when we've tasted it, we can be that instrument of peace to other people. We can exude it. I hope you know peaceful people, like Jesus liked peaceful people in your life, because they can go into a room where there's tension, and maybe not even by talking people out of anything, but just by the way they are, bring peace. Final 2 Beatitudes are simple. If you've reached that place, you're free. So then you just live and let the chips fall. You're not worried about how others judge you or misjudge you. You're not worried even about persecution or people who speak bad about you. My happiness is not that everyone thinks I'm the greatest. Did you know that? And I would actually argue that if you never experience in your own life the 8th and 9th beatitude as a beatitude, like rejoice and be glad, when people speak ill of you because of me, I wonder if we have forward momentum. I wonder if we're living the gospel. You know, I have a little advantage over you when it comes to this, because I wear a uniform, the Roman collar. And I'll tell you, I wear it a lot when I travel and things, you know. I don't sleep in it. The children ask me that, you know. But you see people respond to this symbol, this sign, in very divergent ways. People who have been blessed by the Lord and the church and through priests, and they're just warm. And yes, Father, so good to see you. But you also experience the other side of it. Maybe people who are cynical, people who have been hurt, or people who just mock what we believe. And you get to see that. And there would have been a time early in my priesthood where I kind of whimpered about that, you know? Like, poor me. I just want to get groceries, you know? I don't want to be looked at that like that right now. But slowly I started to think to myself, what a gift. What a gift to be so free in Christ that we can say, I don't always need the esteem of other people. My happiness isn't that everything around me is resolved relationally or in the world. What I want to end with is, don't let your happiness that Christ wants for you, don't become a victim in your life to past hurts, to circumstances you can't control. Jesus knows your heart. You're made for happiness. And the question today really is, do I trust Jesus with my desire for happiness? Do you trust Jesus with your desire for happiness?